Hello and welcome back to FiMFiction Spotlight. This time we are once again looking at changelings. First up is To Lose When You Win. The premise of this one is pretty simple. Chrysalis wins in her initial invasion, and as a sort of haha I won thing, turns Celestia into a changeling, and stuff happens from there. It's a pretty short read, and I'd go ahead and give it a read if I were you, because I'm not going to be spoiling too much more in this. Next up is Who We Are, which is a pretty well-written story, which is longer than the previous one, and basically it's about what happens when Celestia sends Twilight a letter saying, "Hey, one of your friends is a changeling and has been the whole time. I'm gonna come down there and you figure out what to do about it by the time that I'm there." And it follows everybody's thought process on what to do about it and what goes on in the meantime, and it's really well written to the point where you actually have to read between the lines to figure out who exactly the changeling is. I'm not going to spoil too much more about it, but I would definitely go ahead and give it a try. Next up is Nothing, which is about a changeling that instead of getting launched out of the city, got smashed into a wall and broke its legs. And they throw it in the dungeon where it can't eat any emotions, so it's just sitting there starving with broken legs until somebody goes, "Hey, that prisoner looks sort of almost dead. Should we do something about that?" And things happen from there. It's a really, really nice story, very emotionally driven, and I would definitely give it a read if I were you, if you haven't already. Next up is Winds of Change. This is one of the first stories that I read when I started reading fan fiction at all, and it still holds a 10 out of 10 rating, despite the fact that it's held that 10 out of 10 rating since I read it. So that's pretty, important, because a lot of the stories that formerly held 10 out of 10 ratings for me no longer do. So that says a lot about Winds of Change. Basically, it's about Rainbow Dash having been a changeling the entire time, sort of, kind of. It's complicated. If nothing else, give the prologue a chance, because the prologue is so good and it hooks you so well. It's a very, very, very good prologue. And if that doesn't convince you to read the rest of it, I don't know what will. Finally, we have The Hive series by Law Abiding Pony, which is one of my favorite series so far. I haven't read every series on FiMFiction, so I can't say, it's my favorite series on the site or whatever, but it's definitely one of my favorite that I have read so far. I recently caught up with the most recent in the series, which is Mothers of the Hives, and it's currently in progress, but it is the final story as far as I am aware. The stories are Of the Hive, For the Hive, Aegis of the Hive, Culling of the Hives, Reformation of the Hives, and Mothers of the Hives. The general idea, at least of the first story, is that Twilight and Celestia and all of them are, sitting around trying to decide what to do about the changelings because their invasion happened very recently, and one of the diplomats sort of just walks in, drops her disguise, does not look like a chrysalis changeling, by the way, drops her disguise and says, "Our hive would like to have diplomatic relations with Equestria because we really don't want to be hunted as if we're from Chrysalis's brood." And so Twilight ends up going to meet with the queen in question, but on the way, another group of changelings attacks them and poisons Twilight with a poison that has no antidote. So they put Twilight in a healing cocoon to sort of animate her, basically. Celestia comes over, says, "What the heck?" And the queen's like, "Hey, so we can make her not die, but our healing pods are specifically for changelings. And I think you know what I mean when I say that, but let me clarify, she's going to come out the other side as a changeling." And so basically what ends up happening is Twilight turns into a changeling. Initially she has some memory issues. Those go away eventually. But it's a really, really well-written series. Everything about it is so well-written. Everything from the politics in it, to the xenobiology, to the lore, to the just everything. Everything about it. The characterization, the character interactions, everything. It's so well done. And to give you some incentive, Applejack's parents are in it. I think that's about as much incentive as I need to throw out there for somebody to go, holy crap, I need to read this, but Applejack's parents. That's... If I had known that from the start, I would have read it so much faster than I did. It took me months to read this, which it usually wouldn't take me that long, but that's probably because I didn't realize Applejack's parents were in the, I think, 3rd and 4th or 4th and 5th books, I forget. They're in the last couple of them anyways. Also, Grogar's in it. So that's really fun, and it's a really interesting take on Grogar, too, so I really like what they did with Grogar. I like basically everything in this series. Please give it a read. It is so good. I'm just sitting here gushing about it, and I've probably spent half the video doing it. I'm so sorry. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe, and support me on Patreon or Ko-fi. Links are in the description below. Also linked below, you will find the music for the outro of this video. See ya!